Good evening. My name is Leslie Kuhn, and I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of Newcastle. On behalf of our league, I'd like to welcome you and our candidates to the Candidates Forums for the North Castle Town Supervisor and Town Board. We're here tonight as your neighboring league to help with voter education in your community. While we are based in neighboring Newcastle, our league does have members who reside in North Castle, including board member Sheila Burnson, who worked hard to make this set of forums happen. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan, grassroots political organization of women and men. This means that the league does not support or oppose one candidate or political party over another. We are dedicated to the active and informed participation of citizens in government at all levels. The league works to educate voters, increase understanding and debate on major policy issues, and influence policy through education and advocacy. You can find more information about the league, including how to join and support our work, at our website, www.lwvnewcastle.org. Our website also has a page dedicated to the selection season, where you can also find a link to the league's Vote 411, which is a website that has information submitted by the candidates that you'll find on your ballot. Thanks to the Armonk branch of the North Castle Library and Library Director Catherine Feely for hosting us tonight. Thanks also to the Newcastle Community Media Center, who lent us the equipment we are using to tape tonight's forums, and who will edit and post the video for North Castle residents who are unable to be here tonight to see. All other recording is strictly prohibited. Any public sharing or rebroadcast of this candidates forum must be in its entirety and unedited. We are committed to providing an educational experience for all voters who want to learn about your 6 candidates. As a reminder, to ensure that we cover as many topics as possible and to provide as many community members as possible the opportunity to submit questions for the candidates, all questions for tonight's forums come from advanced submissions. We thank the many community members who submitted questions to our committee. The committee worked hard to identify the range of topics that were of interest to all residents and to compile a list of questions to cover those topics. There will not be an opportunity for questions from the audience tonight. We also ask that you hold your applause until the end of the forum, so that we can get all of our questions asked and answered. I'm also sure that it goes without saying that we expect all audience members to listen respectfully to all of the candidates and to refrain from any commentary, particularly since it would be picked up on the recording. Our forums will now proceed. First with the 2 candidates for North Castle Town Supervisor, followed by the 4 candidates for the 2 seats on the North Castle Town Board. Thanks to our timekeeper tonight, League of Women Voters of Newcastle Board Member Mary Kirsch. Many thanks to our moderator for the evening, Kathy Mead, who's the president of the League of Women Voters of Westchester and a member of the board of the League of Women Voters of New York State. Kathy will now go over the ground rules for tonight's forum and introduce the candidates.
Great, thank you, Leslie. Okay. First of all, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. What a great audience you have tonight. And in accordance with league policy, I am not a voter in this district. I actually reside in Ossining Village, over there. All right. Early voting. Let me just move this along here. Early voting for this election starts on October 28th, which is Saturday, and ends on November 5th. You may find all your voting information at vote411.org. You can find information not only about your candidates, but your ballot and you can print your ballot and take it to the polls with you. So that's really important. We'll also be uploading, and we have been uploading candidate forums. So this recording will also be uploaded. I want to make mention with early voting that you can go to any of the 23 poll locations in Westchester County. But on election day, November 7th, you must go to your assigned polling location. So if you're out shopping down in Yonkers on a Saturday, go run in if you're passing a poll location, all right? Tonight, we will have 2 candidate forums, as you know. First, we will hear from the 2 candidates for North Castle Town Supervisor. Then we will hear from the 4 candidates for Newcastle Town Board. So welcome, everybody. Before I get started, I do want to go over some of the ground rules which apply to both sessions. The order of opening statements has been determined by lots that were drawn before the meeting. The order of closing statements will be in the reverse of the opening statements. The order in which candidates will respond to further questions will be rotated by me to ensure fairness. Throughout the forum, there are to be no comments of a personal or abusive nature that will not be permitted, nor will candidates interrupt one another. The moderator has the authority to pause the proceedings and will rule this out of order. Each candidate has up to 1.5 minutes for their opening statement. They will then answer a question, as we know, posed by the league, but also followed from questions from the public. Candidates have 1.5 minutes to answer each question. The timekeeper will indicate when 30 seconds remain in the allowed speaking time. Thank you. And again, when the time is up. There you go, stop sign. Each candidate will be permitted 2 rebuttals during the question portion by raising their hand at the conclusion of all responses. Each rebuttal will be 30 seconds. There will be no responses to rebuttals. Questions from the public, as you know, were submitted prior to the forum, so we will not be taking live questions this evening from the audience. Candidates are not to utilize electronic devices except for their opening and closing statements, but they may have paper and pen handy to jot down notes during the forum. At the conclusion of the question period, each candidate will have up to 1.5 minutes for their closing statement. So let's get started. All right, for town supervisor race, we have 2 candidates, candidate Barbara DiGiacinto and Joseph Rendy, right? So let's move along. So let's start with opening statements from Miss DiGiacinto. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, League of Women Voters, and thank you in the audience for attending. I'm Barbara Waco DiGiacinto. I'm 3rd generation to call North Castle home. I have deep ties and deep roots to this town, and I think that is what motivated me to consider serving on the town board in 2013. In terms of my history, I became very interested in how town government ran by attending and participating in town board meetings and planning board meetings. And I found that being a member of the audience, your voice was heard and it made a difference. In 2013, I ran for the town board because I felt there was a lack of civility and transparency, and I felt with my running mates, we could make a difference, and we did. This is my 3rd term serving on the town board. For 2 years, I have served also as deputy supervisor. I am not a member of a voting bloc. That was a myth that was circulated in the last election. And I think an example of where I am a free thinker in terms of the Mariani property, I voted not to rezone that residential, and I've done other things where I am in a minority and not the majority of the voters. My accomplishments, I have been able to help obtain funding from county and state legislators for Mount Misery. I was persuaded the town board to provide funding for the North White Plains Community Center to become a shelter.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rendy.
I want to thank the league and all of the people that came out tonight to participate in this forum, and certainly the residents who have an opportunity to watch it live from their homes. We have a great community here in North Castle, and I'm very proud to be a part of that community. we currently, and this is something that gives me great pause. We currently are carrying in the community a $20 million taxpayer money in our auxiliary fund. I'm sorry, I'm actually using the wrong terminology. I apologize. We are currently carrying over $20 million of taxpayer money in our town reserve account. While all standard budget practices in accordance with the New York State Controller's Office tells us that this amount exceeds a safe and reasonable amount necessary to maintain a AAA bound rate. What makes matters worse is the town has neglected areas that would have required routine maintenance and now require major repairs.
Mr. Rundy, thank you. Your time is up. And I will just remind the candidates, glance up once in a while to look at our timekeeper. So we make sure that you have the timing correct, right? Thank you. All right, question number 1. Let's get started. We start with Ms. DiGiacinto. We appreciate your willingness to put yourself forward to serve your community. Why are you uniquely qualified to serve as supervisor? How have you been and how will you be an asset to the community?
I believe that I am qualified to serve as supervisor, and I think what makes me very unique, as I mentioned a moment ago, I am 3rd generation to call North Castle home. Whether it's Armonk, North White Plains, or Banksville and that sliver of Bedford, people know me, I've worked with them, they trust me. I receive phone calls, I receive emails, and sometimes even people knocking on my door because they know that I am there to help and to serve. I think my experience as a town board member since 2014 makes me very well prepared to sit in the seat as supervisor. And by the way, which I think is very important to just note, is here we are in 2023, but if elected, I will be the 2nd woman to be supervisor in the town of North Castle. I also think the reason that I would be a very good choice for supervisor is if you have attended town board meetings or if you follow them at all. I am without a doubt well prepared to the point, ask any department head a day or 2 before a meeting, how many times I will call for information, for clarification, for advice that helps me make the right decision that night when we have to vote.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rundy.
So I really believe that there's a big difference between the supervisor and the council members. The supervisor, I think, really requires someone that has a good leadership ability, and that's something that I feel that I have tremendous leadership skills, both with my business experience as well as my past government experience. I served in the public realm as a trustee and as a deputy mayor in another community, but I also served Westchester County as the deputy director of emergency management. And in that role, I was tasked with the responsibility of dealing with all different municipalities within Westchester. So I've dealt with leaders of communities in both political persuasion, members of the county legislature, the federal government, the FEMA, as well as the state government. So I feel that those skills are necessary to become a good supervisor. And that's why I decided to continue in this.
Okay.
I know she's good.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, so Mr. Rundy, we start the next question with you. Being supervisor is a part-time job with full-time issues and responsibilities. What are your priorities if elected, and how would you balance the demands of the job?
Well, one of the priorities, and I started to go into on my opening statement with the fact that we are sitting on a $20 million reserve that has been underutilized, and we've neglected many areas in the community. I feel that not only can we address some of the areas that we've neglected over the last 13 years, but it's my position that it's time to actually look at reducing the taxes for the taxpayers in the town. I think it's something that should be done, and I promise that if elected, at least over the next 2 years, certainly I will look to lower the taxes for North Castle, utilizing some of that $20 million that we have in excess. I think one of the other responsibilities of the supervisor, besides being the chief financial officer, is also assisting with the town administrator in dealing with some of the day-to-day operations of the community. I believe that there's been a neglect in many areas of day-to-day operation. And I look to work with the town administrator and hopefully bolster that operation. Thank you.
Perfect, I'm good, thank you. Ms. DiGiacinto.
Would you repeat the question?
Sure. Being supervisor is a part-time job with full-time issues and responsibilities. What are your priorities if elected, and how will you balance the demands of the job?
Right, one priority is to definitely keep taxes flat, but not to compromise the services that I think that all of our residents expect of us. I think that I would like to speak with the board, and I think it's very important with anyone running for office. It's one voice. I cannot say that I promise I will do something. I will work with the board and hope that I will get the support of the board. But for instance, in the case of our fund balance, which is what Mr. Rendy has been referring to, I would like to see the board discuss taking portions of the fund balance and putting them in a special reserve fund where we will allocate a certain amount of money, for instance, for capital improvements in town hall. I think that there are definitely, I'm not talking cosmetics, I'm talking about, for instance, the steps in town hall, the walkway by the flagpole, the need perhaps for a new roof. That would be one of the things that I would like to do in terms of reserve funds. I think it's also very important that we have priorities, whether it's for our recreation department or other departments as well, and have a long-term plan for whether it's fields, whether it is our senior programs, whatever the case may be.
Thank you. You have a rebuttal? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Rendy. 30 seconds.
So I'm glad that we're focusing a little bit on the fund balance. So over the last 13 years, this fund balance has been accumulated. Certainly, I believe back in 2007, or maybe a little bit after, the financial condition of the town was in poor shape. And through those years, the current town board, as well as the previous boards, really tightened up their belt. And over those 13 years, we've built up this $20 million plus reserve account. Now,
Quick 30 seconds.
yeah.
Okay, next question, we start with Ms. DiGiacinto. Last year, the town completed its first park and recreation survey of the past 12 years. A big takeaway was many residents' desires for artificial turf fields. The town now knows the approximate cost of such a project. How should the town move forward, if at all?
The town is moving forward. At a recent town board meeting, it was the unanimous vote to have our town engineer, John Keller, prepare bid documents so that we will, and this will be a very long process, this will be months, so that the town board will have a definite idea of how the two proposed artificial multi-purpose turf fields will cost. And I think that is going to be very important to see the exact amount. For instance, we've been given an estimate, I believe, for both fields for $2.7 million. And it's not rough, but the bid documents are going to be much more focused, much more specific. And I think when we get those bid documents, we have not only the decision to decide, are we going to go forward, but also how are we going to pay for it? And I think it's what's very important to keep in mind, whether it's fields or buying expensive equipment, is we do have, you know, a fiduciary responsibility as a town board to make sure we are spending money wisely. And I don't see the town board taking any expenditure such as the artificial turf fields lightly. I think we have to think this long and hard. And then also, we have to see what our economic stability is in terms of this country and the world.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rennie.
Yeah, so again, you know, it's from that extremely large fund balance that we can utilize funding not only for the turf fields, but also for the improvements necessary to the town pool, which the town just recently purchased. As well as take advantage of the community benefit agreement monies that have come in or that are proposed to come in from some of the new development that's starting to take place in town. So it's through those funds that we should be looking at the improvements, you know, not only to the two turf fields that we're proposing or that the town is proposing at the IBM location, but improvements in other town facilities. My understanding is currently we have a situation with Lombardi Park, not only with the drainage problem, but also supplying clean water to the park. All of those things need to be addressed.
Okay, thank you very much. A rebuttal? Yes?
Just besides the fund balance I see, and I believe that Mr. Rennie said this a moment ago, this is taxpayer money. And I think that we have an alternative to spending, for instance, for turf fields and the artificial turf fields, and that would be perhaps a bond. And that would be a bond that maybe would be spread over 30 or 40 years. It would probably be amount per property owner, not be a large amount of money. So I think I would not be so quick to raise the fund balance for artificial turf fields. I would like to look into other alternatives.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rundy, we start with you next. What are your views on current development in your town? How will the town handle the impact of these large development projects on quality of life and town infrastructure?
So unfortunately, I think a lot of the development that has already been approved is, I guess I use the term of, you know, the horse is out of the barn, you know, after we close the doors. I think I would have handled some of the rezoning a bit differently. I don't believe that the rezoning of the Mariani site for solely residential was a wise choice. I also would remind everyone that when you're looking at rezoning in a community like ours or any community, you really have to look at what the effects can be or potentially can be down the road. You know, to try to hold a developer back in terms of its density or what effects it's going to have on the community after you've already zoned the property, in my opinion, that's a little bit too late. And, you know, some of that research should have been done and deliberation should have taken place prior to the rezoning. But currently, I think the board is starting to at least move in the right direction with encouraging developers to fee simple taxation versus condominium taxation. And thankfully, some of the board members have focused on that.
Thank you very much. Ms. DiGiacinto.
And again, I'm going to ask you to repeat the question.
Okay. What are your views on current development in your town? How will the town handle the impact of these large development projects on quality of life and town infrastructure?
I think the town board has done a very good job examining each and every application for rezone for residential development. I also think in each case, the parcels were cited in our comprehensive plan. And that's our Bible. That is, as a town board, zoning is probably one of the most important aspects of our job, our responsibility. And for instance, the comprehensive plan, I believe in each case said that the town board needed to consider some residential, in some cases it said limited residential, but in other cases, for instance, airport campus, that is a parcel approximately 38 acres. It has been empty for at least 5 years, probably more. The handwriting is on the wall. The old business parks are dinosaurs. And therefore, to work with a developer to have, in the case of airport campus, an apartment building with 52 bedroom units for 55 and older that are rental, and then 125 townhouses that are fee simple, that have 3 bedrooms and are going to be appealing not only to people with families, but with seniors.
Thank you very much. The next question, we start with Ms. Giacinto. How will you assess future development proposals? Is it time to put a moratorium back in place or to limit the size of future projects to allow the town to absorb the impacts of current projects?
I think that we have to certainly be very careful going forward. Fortunately, we really don't have any more that I can think of, really large tracts of land, such as the 38 acres at Airport Campus, 36 acres, I believe, at Eagle Ridge. And so that I think that whatever rezoning applications we have for residential, we certainly have to do an inventory of not only what we have, what exists, but what we have on paper, and obviously what we're going to have going forward. I don't have a number, I don't have an answer, but we're going to have to look at all of the things, all of the impacts, schools, traffic, our services, our police department, our volunteer firefighters, and make sure that any additional developments will not tax our town anymore. I think that there is a need for maybe mixed use housing, where, for instance, our zoning allows on the first floor retail and on the second floor rental apartments, because we really don't have in our 3 hamlets a great inventory of rental units. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rundy?
I find myself agreeing with Barbara on that. Thank God we don't have too many more large tracts of land, because I don't think the town could absorb any more of this large development. I think we're at a point where we've overdeveloped now. It's limited for a town like this. I think as I go around town and meet people, that's one of the largest concerns, that we're seeing the effects of how it's changing our community. Traffic is always an issue with residents, and certainly, we have to be cognizant of what it would possibly do to our schools by continuing to add to the, to the population. So, again, I think I would have handled some of the development projects a little bit differently from their inception. I believe that the Mariani site was a perfect site for a gateway type of redevelopment, which would allow for a mixed use with some maybe, rental apartments above a retail center. But again, the wisdom that the board at the time chose to rezone it purely for residential, I certainly don't agree with it. I think I would have done that differently. But I, also am, I mean, we have to admit that the projects that have gotten approval and are in the pipeline to be constructed, we're stuck with.
Thank you very much. Rebuttal? This is your final rebuttal block.
All right, I just take a little bit of offense of saying we're stuck with. I think that given some of the agreements that we have, the community benefits agreements, where we are receiving money to expand sewer and water, as you mentioned before, our fields. I think that these are all going to be very unique and very fine developments. For instance, right now at the end of Bedford Road, the former lumber yard. I mean, people are asking, when are they going to be ready? Are they for sale? Are they rental? There's a lot of excitement, and it's people that have.
Thank you, Sheila.
For getting this 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Rundy, we start with you with the next question. What are your budget priorities? Are there capital expenditures that are necessary in the next few years? And how would you fund them?
Well, again, I think we touched on it a little bit before, that there's many locations in the town that have gone neglected. I refer to it as we've been overtaxed and underserved in many areas. Barbara mentioned the area in front of the town hall, the stairs as you enter the town hall. Certainly, if you look at sidewalks on Main Street, there's improvements that are certainly needed in the area of North White Plains with replacement of sidewalks and so forth. You know, the crazy part about the statement was that, you know, to go out and bond long term as interest rates are rising, you'd be foolish to go out and bond and pay a higher interest rate when you're sitting on $20 million of taxpayer money waiting to be utilized. So we have this money, we should be utilizing it for not only routine maintenance, but now some of these special projects that are required because we did a lack of maintenance for the last 13 years and created projects that need to be done, repairs that need to be done, or else. So that's what I would look to do. I would start to utilize this money in a smart, business-like, intelligent way, correct some of the areas that need to be corrected, and at the same time, utilize some of the money to actually help to roll back the taxes.
Thank you very much. Is DG again, repeat the question, please. What are your budget priorities? Are there capital expenditures that are necessary in the next few years, and how would you fund them?
I believe I mentioned in my opening comments that I would like to take some money from the fund balance and appropriate a certain amount for certain improvements. I gave the example, capital improvements for some of our buildings. I would like to look into some initiatives in terms of energy efficiency, whether it's solar panels, for instance, in Mount Pleasant, they have it in their town hall. They have the solar panel carports, and that might be something that we could look into. And some of these initiatives, there's grant money, there's state, there's federal grant money, and I would like to look to see if we can obtain some of that funding to offset the cost of projects such as that. I would like to see a sit down and really come up with a plan, whether it's a, I don't know if I would call it a comprehensive plan, but a plan looking at all buildings in North Castle and what do they need and what is going to be the priority. Maybe a comprehensive plan for the rec department in which it's going to be maybe a 5 or 10 year plan. But what are the priorities? What can we realistically get done? Once again, I don't want to necessarily quickly just go to the fund balance because there's a lot of money there. I'd like to look at other ways to for costs.
Okay, thank you very much. We start the next question with you, Ms. DG. I want to rebut. Okay, go right ahead.
So I know this has been kicked around. I just want the people to understand that when I talk about $20 million in our reserve, what the state controller tells us is a reasonable amount to carry in our reserve is between $5 and $7 million. We are carrying $20+ million. Even last year, when we did the bonding for the repaving of the road, we bonded $4 million over and above what was needed for the road, adding to that increase in the fund balance.
Okay.
So there's plenty
Thank
of
you.
money there to maintain a healthy fund balance and still utilize it to make the improvements necessary without borrowing more money
Okay,
and
thank you.
withdrawing back the taxes.
Thank you very much. Okay, next question, Ms. DiGiacinto. What do you view as the single most challenging aspect of the town's master plan to be executed over the next 5 years?
Would you speak to the first part? I'm sorry.
What do you view as the single most challenging aspect of the town's master plan to be executed over the next 5 years?
Probably to look very, very carefully at the master plan in terms of residential development. It is obviously, from tonight's comments and questions, it is a very important concern. And I think that it would be really very helpful to see what parcels that we have in all three hamlets that are potential for development, multi-family developments. Unfortunately, the hamlet of Banksville and the sliver of Bedford, they have no municipal water or sewer. So I think that's one hamlet that we're going to look at, and our comprehensive plan is going to reflect that there really isn't going to be a large impact in terms of residential development. In terms of North White Plains and Armonk, we're very different. You already have in North White Plains development that really has probably maxed out. And so I think our focus would probably be looking at the comprehensive plan and what are the suggestions for residential development, as well as any type of business development that would address perhaps some of the empty spaces that we have either retail or in office parks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rendy?
I think when we talk about a master plan, one thing that we need to look at for downtown Armonk is a way to help with the parking situation, especially in order to be able to enhance and create an even flow of traffic for our current businesses in the downtown area. I believe in the as far as the North White Plains hamlet, we really need to look at illegal apartments that have started to increase in North White. We've seen an increase in terms of absentee landlords. So I really believe that code enforcement is going to be a primary issue for us going forward in the North White area. As far as the Banksville area goes, I believe that part of our master plan should talk about environment and protecting the environment. We have some very sensitive environmental issues over in the Banksville section with our water. We've got the Hyannis River that runs through the Banksville section of town, and currently the town is utilizing a very sensitive parcel, which I raised at the last town board meeting. We're utilizing it as a community dump site, which I think needs to be reverted back to its natural state.
Okay, thank you very much. We're already at our final question for the evening. Mr. Rendy, how will you create more community? How will you create more community amongst all North Castle residents?
That's an interesting question and a good question. I think that there's unfortunately, I'll give you an example. We're recently looking at doing the turf fields in Armonk. And for some reason, some of the, elected officials in town have taken an opportunity to try to pit North White Plains against the residents of Armonk, that the, improvements to these turf fields are going to benefit just the Armonk residents and not the North White Plains residents. Yeah, I think that's very dangerous, and it doesn't, give me great, pleasure when you start to see, board members trying to create this animosity between sections of the community. I happen to live in a hamlet that sometimes as well is somewhat forgotten. I'm over in the Banksville section. You know, I consider myself a a North Castle resident. I don't consider myself a Banksville resident, or, you know, and we shouldn't look at each other as North White residents. We should all look at North Castle residents, and if North Castle does well, both from a financial standpoint as well as a community service standpoint, then all community residents benefit from that. So that's what I would look. I would be the, I guess, the #1 cheerleader for North Castle, and not necessarily for any individual hamlets.
Thank you very much. Ms. Giacinto, again, repeat the question, please. How will you create more community amongst all North Castle residents?
Right, I think that I have been very successful in terms of North White Plains, and this could certainly be enhanced, having monthly gatherings at, in this case, the North White Plains Community Center, in which we discuss all matters of concerns. I call it my think tank. Many times, the residents of North White Plains come up with solutions, and there's solutions that really work. For instance, a few years ago, there was a gas station that had been abandoned for years, and we talked through what would be the best way to enhance that. And I think what is now the green drop. Part of the reason it looks, I think, as good as it will is because of my North White Plains meetings. I can honestly say, and I'm a little offended at the idea that some town board members are pitting North White Plains residents against Armonk residents about the artificial turf field. That is just untrue, and that's divisive, and it is maybe a campaign tactic, but I really find it very offensive. I also find it offensive to call Middle Patton a dump. The Middle Patton yard is a transfer station, and if we were to close it down, some of the fallout might be that we would no longer have the ability to collect leaves, which become mulch, and therefore each and every one of us in this room would be stuffed with our leaves, with our branches, etc.
Thank you very much. It is now time for closing statements. As I said earlier, closing statements will be given in the reverse order as the opening statements. Candidates, you have 1.5 minutes for your closing statement. Let's begin with Mr. Rendy. Mr. Rendy? It is the reverse.
Oh, is it? Okay. So, again, I'd really like to focus on the personal skills that I bring to the table. They are leadership and my business acumen. You've heard tonight some of my plans as far as what I think is the best way to start to utilize the reserve money that's been underutilized. I also have focused my attention on environmental issues that I think are very, very important for the community. I'm not interested in partisan politics. My only focus is to do what's right for the community. I certainly love North Castle. I want to be able to continue to experience all the benefits and wonderful things that North Castle has to offer its residents. As your supervisor, I would hope that I would be able to form consensus on the board amongst its members and move the community forward in a positive way. And that's what I've the kind of experience that has led me through my business career as well as through my career in government. And that's what it really takes. It's really, I think that's what's most important in this election is the difference between leadership, and that's what I have to offer the community.
Thank you very much. Ms. DiGiacinto.
I thought a lot about my mother today. It's her birthday. She died at 66, 1 month after being diagnosed with gallbladder cancer. She missed a lot in my life and my accomplishments. She missed seeing me work with Democratic county and state legislators for the benefit of our town. For instance, funding so that we could purchase Mount Misery, a historical site in North White Plains. She missed seeing me stand up to Connecticut legislators and saying stop when they wanted to put a toll on 684 on the border of North Castle. She missed seeing me work with County Legislator Margaret Cunzio to secure water security for the residents of Quarry Heights. She missed seeing me participate in New York State Senate and Assembly hearings when there was terrible legislation posed that would have been statewide residential zoning that would have been particularly harmful for North White Plains, but for all of us, because it would be very easy to convert an apartment out of a garage, an attic, etc. She missed seeing that I have such deep roots and I have developed such trust from the residents. And finally, she missed seeing Supervisor Shalera, a Democrat, endorse me and my entire slate to serve North Castle.
Thank you very much. Thank you to both the candidates and the audience. For town supervisor now, we'll take a short break. And then we have
2 minutes.
candidates for the town board.
2 minutes for a reset.
Okay, very good. We're ready for our next forum for town board. Town board races, we have 4 candidates for 2 seats. And the candidates will proceed in this order. Mr. Barra, Mr. Hussein, Mr. Orlana, and Mr. Ruizzi, all right? Mr. Barra, we will start with you with opening statements. You have 1.5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So I won't make any jokes. Barbara, you and I share a parent's birthday today. So that's very nice. I think I bring a lot of very good credentials to the town board. I started out as a CPA at one of the big 8 accounting firms. I went to University of Chicago Law School and became a tax lawyer at 2 very good firms in the city. Then from there, I moved into the U.S. Treasury Department doing tax policy in D.C. In addition to my duties there, because the Iron Curtain had fallen a few years before, I ended up going to Ukraine and Estonia to help fight their tax laws. Then I went into investment banking, this business on the business side. And after that, I got back into law on a part-time basis. So I have flexibility to do this and other things. Starting to speak so quickly, but a minute and a half is not very long. I've accomplished quite a bit in terms of important things. When something is important for the town, I'm incredibly tenacious. In 2015, I warned about the problem with condo tax. And finally, with Matt Nolan joining the board 2 years ago, the town board stopped continuing granting that. I also wrote at that time in a mailer about the need to accelerate rotating. I've done other things. MBIA, they wanted to revoke a conservation easement that protects our water coming out of Catskill Reservoir. I kept after them until ultimately the easement was kept in place and expanded. I'm actively supporting turf fields. Barbara's right, we have to look at the economics. If anybody knows anything about me, I look at numbers very carefully, and I'm not going to do it on incentives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hussein.
Okay, hi everyone, my name is Salim Hussein, and let me just tell you a little bit about myself, for those of you that don't know me. So North Castle has been my home and my family's home for over 10 years. We lived in on McDougal Drive in North White Plains, and then we lived We now live in Sarl Street in Armonk. We haven't yet gone to Banksville, so that's our next stop. The town has also been a center for civic commitments for me. Like, I invite you all to analyze my last 4 years on the town board. I've done my best to lead with inclusivity, with transparency, with like an unwavering commitment to the good, to the betterment of the residents' experience. This has been really important for me and something I'm really committed to. And I also come with a lot of business experience. So I've been working at IBM in several business executive roles. I've worked in 12 different countries. I've managed over 150 people. I'm also appointed to the AI ethics board at IBM. So I understand what it means to lead with responsibility, with strong ethics. This is something that's very important to me. And I also want to just share that this is a really pivotal moment because we're going up to a local election that's one of the most important in recent history. We have major financial decisions to make as a town. So that's why it's really important that you're here. And thank you so much for coming with us.
And thank you, Mr. Orlando.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Moderator, thank you to the League of Women Voters, and thank you to you, the taxpayers of North Castle. My name is Mel Orlana, and I am running for town board. I have been a resident of Armonk for 10 years. My wife Danielle was born and raised in this town. I have 3 girls, Alexis, Taylor, and Brooklyn, all attended the Byron Hill School District. I graduated from Casanova College with a bachelor's degree in business. I started my career in banking at JP Morgan, went to MNT, and now I am currently the president and CEO of Prime Building Services, a high-end home remodeling company here in Armonk, New York. I also volunteer with the Architecture Review Board, and I've been doing that for 2 years. And I believe that my experience in construction has allowed me to serve this town gracefully. I believe that I have the experience necessary to help this town move forward. Like my counterpart, Salim said, that this town is going to face many challenges in the next years to come. I believe that I have the experience to get us over that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ruisi.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I believe my business experience and my community service make me an excellent candidate for the town board. I'm a graduate of St. John's University. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in accounting. I have an MBA in finance and I'm a certified public accountant. I worked for the accounting firm of Pricewaterhouse where I was a senior audit manager. I was senior vice president and controller of TriStar Pictures. I was executive vice president and chief financial officer of Columbia Pictures, and I was president and chief executive officer of Lowe's Cineplex Entertainment. With respect to community service, I've been on the board of advisors at St. John's University School of Business since 1995. I was also an adjunct professor of accounting there from 2010 to 2020. I was a member of the Board of Governors of Sound Shore Medical Center in New Rochelle, New York for 18 years, and I was chairman for 4 years. With respect to the town of North Castle, I have volunteered for 14 years. I've been on the Budget and Finance Committee for 13 years. I've been on the Planning Board since 2019. During that time, I helped design a plan to finance and repave all the roads. I created a feasibility study for the town pool, an operating plan for the town pool, which resulted in its ultimate purchase. And I've been involved in the annual budget meetings since 2010. I advised the board on best practices, which has resulted in lower taxes.
Okay, thank you. Good timing. Okay. Mr. Barra, I'm going to start with you with question number 1. We appreciate your willingness to put yourself forward to serve your community. Why are you uniquely qualified to sit on the town board? How have you been and how will you be an asset to the community?
Thank you. I think I explained in my opening statement why I think I had another dimension to the town board. I got the multi-disciplined, finance business person, very sophisticated background, and I look at things very carefully. I've said some of the things that I accomplished. There are a couple of other things that I'm really focusing on. We have to go ahead and be environmentally responsible. Joe mentioned something. Also, I helped resuscitate the recycling committee. So we're gonna have food composting. That's a big one. We have a great group of people there. I focused on tightening the rules, the transfer rules on community benefits agreement, which means that we can collect money as we're supposed to instead of having a big loophole there. I am highly in support of the turf fields. I've looked at it very carefully. Barbara is right, we have to figure out how to pay for it. The numbers are significant at 2.7, but we've looked, and I've looked at what the saved maintenance costs would be over 20 years. And that would be 1.2 million, that would bring the cost down to 1.5, a lot of money. We also have 250,000 coming from Eagle Ridge. I can use that to brings it down further. I am very careful with money, my own and the town's especially. Sorry. And I think we would pay for it with the fund balance. I think we've had a respect mentality in the town in building up the fund balance that much. I don't want to squander it in the least. I think we used to reduce taxes and also to help fund some of the important things such as rec fields, building a highway garage to extend the life of our trucks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Hussein,
Yes, so can you repeat the question?
I can. We appreciate your willingness to put yourself forward to serve your community. Why are you uniquely qualified to sit on the town board? How have you been and how will you be an asset to the community?
Yeah, so there's a few things I just want to call out that you should know about me that make me different. The first thing is that I have no play in this game. There's like nothing in my life or in my work that from a monetary perspective is affected by the decisions that we make on the board. I'm not saying that when there is, it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that I have nothing like that. And anytime there's anything that might even have an impression to someone that it has an effect, I've been very clear in recusing myself in those situations. And you can see that from my background. And that's something you know as a guarantee. The second thing I would be very clear on to you is I'm really good at dealing with very complex decisions. So these decisions we need to make as a board, we need to listen to what the residents are telling us, which are actually simple reactions and emotions that you feel when you are dealt with in a poor way. But like when we take that input, we as a town board need to understand the complexity behind that. What are all the things that you can do to actually make that experience better? And I know how to make that happen. And then the third thing is, I live and work in the town and I intend to be here for a long time. We have 4 small daughters, my wife and I live, like I can bike to my office. And this is something that's deeply ingrained for me and my family. It means something greater than like anything that like we all understand, right? So those are the things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Orlon,
You repeat the question one more time?
we appreciate your willingness to put yourself forward to serve your community. Why are you uniquely qualified to sit on the town board? How have you been and how will you be an asset to the community?
Great, I'm a taxpayer. I believe that I have a vested interest in this town, like all the taxpayers in this town do. I love the town. I have a family here. I expect to see my family here for many years to come. I want to use my business experience, my work experience to help the town make the best decisions possible. That might be financially, will be structurally, it will be a development. I believe that I just love the town. And I want to be able to be part of a team that helps us get to the next stage.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Ruisi.
Well, as I said in my opening statement, I think my business experience and my community service qualified me for this job. You know, the fact is I've been working with the town since 2010. And when we started the Budget and Finance Committee, one of the first things we did, or I did, was we sat with all the department heads in the town, really got an excellent understanding of how the town works, its strengths and its needs. Now, in addition to the things I mentioned earlier, I was also asked we also did a police study where we looked at the staffing, the cost of the police department. I helped interview candidates for the town administrator and the town patrol. I was also asked to sit on the airport subcommittee, whereas some of the other towns were trying to get the flight paths changed, but it would actually fly right over the town of Newcastle, actually right over Armonk. And we were able to stop it. I think that things that need to be addressed in the town, infrastructure, some deferred maintenance, certainly there's some rec needs. I've dealt with complicated situations throughout my career, problem solving, and I've been an executive, I've been a leader.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll start the next question with Mr. Hussein. What are your budget priorities? Do you have any thoughts on how to use the existing general fund balance, or whether we should replenish other fund balances such as open space?
Yeah, great. So, this is a great question for this moment in time, because we have a lot of major needs coming up as a town, and we're gonna need to weigh which ones are important and how we should be investing in each of those. So let me name a few key ones. So one is around our, like the buildings that we have that are town owned. You may notice there's major replenishment and renovation needed in several of these buildings. Wherever you live, I think there's something that's close by that may be an example. We need to actually do an assessment across the buildings and see how we need to actually make it to a par that's going to be useful for work in and for representing the town. The second is around Parks and Rec and with the library. So with Parks and Rec, there's a major decision forward that we have to bit around the fields. That's going to be an important investment decision. In the library, there's a lot of investment that happens around programming. And there's a tremendous opportunity for us to do more with the library benefits that we give to residents. So this is something that I really care deeply about, and I'd like to put more focus around. On the Parks and Rec, the pool is another area that is going to need tremendous investment. I think we're going to be able to do that. And then the last thing I want to indicate is around walking and biking trails. So our town does not have a very good walkability score, and that's something we can improve. That's going to take a major effort, and I'd like to take that on over the next few years.
Thank you very much. Mr. Orlando,
Same question.
what are your budget priorities?
So I had an opportunity to go to the town of, go to North Castle, there in North Castle, and we talked to a couple of different residents of North Castle, and they all complain that their water is brown, a couple of times during the month. And I believe that our budget should be allocated to fixing some of that infrastructure. Because they're residents, and they pay, to have to have clean water. So that would be one of my priorities, would be to address that. The other one would be to address our parks, fields, and recreation. But also we continue to talk about, taking all this money out of the fund balance. We are living in times where we don't know how things are gonna be tomorrow. We have all these variables economically that we may be losing some of this money that we have been seeing over the past 3-4 years ever since the pandemic. So my whole thing is, how do we save some of this money just in case things don't go the way we see it?
Thank you very much. Mr. Ruizzi.
So I think when it comes to capital expenditures, I think there's maybe 3 or 4 big buckets. So the first one is infrastructure. With the development that's happened in town, we need to take a look at our parking. Right now, it looks okay, but as more and more of these units are developed, we need to expand our parking. Maple Avenue on the way out of town, that needs to be addressed. That gets backed up in the morning. We may need to do something there. As Barbara and others have mentioned, there's deferred maintenance around town that needs to be dealt with. So we need to deal with that, whatever it takes. The entrance to town hall, whether the windows need to be replaced. And then also recreation. There is a lot of discussion on recreation, fields, pool, all of these things need to be addressed. And not only the fields in Armonk, the Vince County, not only the fields up here, but also the fields in North Point. Now, for several years, for a long time, we've been trying to find a place for the highway garage. We spend a couple of $100,000 a year on maintenance of those vehicles, and if you could find a place for a garage where we could store these vehicles inside, I think it would help the town.
Thank you. Mr. Barrett.
So I believe what we've got to do is set priorities. I always go for the low hanging fruit, and there's a couple of reasons to go somewhere else, but slow hanging fruit, something to pick for yourself. Larry just mentioned the highway garage. We have been talking about that for years. It's time to take action. At the last budget meeting, I said I was gonna have a very hard time voting to buy new trucks unless we had a plan to move forward with the highway garage. It's absolutely necessary because the way the trucks are parked, they deteriorate. These trucks cost a couple $100,000 each, and we've got to take care of that. Also, the mechanics need a place to work. They work outdoors with a huge lift when it's really cold. They told me all we need is 50 degrees and we'll be fine. It is the pool. That's a gem in the town. And now with what's happening with the pool down in North White Plains, I think that's something that'll benefit more residents too. But we finally bought the pool. It took too long to do it. And we have it. So we've got to first check it on leakage. We've got to fix the surface of the pool very deeply. We've got to do the deck. And then we'll see what else we do. We have to really focus, I think, on environmental things. As someone mentioned before, solar panels. I've been pushing for that for I don't know how long. We've really got to try to do it. We've got to take advantage of grants. I don't squander money in the least. People have seen me raise issues about $4,000 or $5,000 expenditures when they're excessive, but we want to do a lot of things. Let's get grants. The town has hired someone to do that. Let's get grants and go ahead and help do all these things, including the water. It's in North White Plains. It's a water district, but Sal's great at getting grants for us.
Thank you very much. Okay, next question. We start with Mr. Orlana. Development in your town is a key concern for most residents. Please share your views about the proliferation of large-scale developments and their impact on neighborhood character and town infrastructure, including traffic, fire, and police.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to the infrastructure of the town, especially development, you have to look at a few different things. A lot of the development that has been happening in the town recently has been rezoned from commercial to residential. So places where we're building right now used to be a lumber yard. The other place used to be a nursery. The other place was a commercial building. A lot of these places are just being rezoned. I think the board has done a great job at making sure that the character of these rezones, these new construction actually fit in with the town. We have issues. My wife works in real estate. There's, I think, only 29 houses for sale in Armonk. So a lot of the development has been going on is to meet the demands of new residents coming into the town. I don't believe that, that we should make a development decision if it affects our resources. Like it puts a stress on our police department, it puts a stress on EMS, it puts a stress on the fire department, it puts a stress on traffic. And I think that so far, the board has been doing a decent job of doing that. I bring a construction background, and my job is to make sure that for my volunteering with the architectural review board, that all this development actually fits in with the character of the town, and to continue to do that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ruisi.
I think it's important to understand that with all of these developments that have happened over the last several years, with each development, there's an environmental impact study. And that study takes a hard look at how the particular development will impact the town. Will it put a burden on fire? Will it put a burden on police? Do we have enough room in our schools to handle it? So in each case, there is a very detailed and significant view. That particular environmental impact study is viewed by the town as well as the planning. We put online or about to put online over the next several years, some 400 views. You can't sit here and thumb your nose at the governor and her plan to basically have transit-oriented development, which if enacted could build up to 6,000 units within 1 mile of North White Plains train station. That just doesn't work for the town. It would overrun the town. So, what the town has done on each one of these developments has been responsible, but as we go forward, we need to continue to do the same thing. If the development comes up, we need to take a very hard look at it. What is it going to do to the town? Will it stress on our resources? Will it change the character and the quality of life?
Thank you, Mr. Barrett.
This is usually when I use the expression, I have my choir t-shirt on, as if you're preaching to the choir. I sent out an e-blast August 8th saying, I'm very concerned about all the development, aren't you? I went into some concerns. You don't have to live here forever to appreciate the aesthetics. We've got beautiful areas all over. I've personally been a resident for 34 years. I volunteered in every community event I possibly can. I think that we've had too much development. I don't think we've been careful enough, or other members of the town board have been careful enough in looking at some of these things. Traffic gets disregarded. I look not to single anybody out, but if you go up Route 128, that was right next to David Chen's. I think it's a beautiful building. I would not have gone ahead and paid that location. And they got, like a lot of others, what I consider routine granting of condo development, and they got extra density. A lot of this condo development taxation and the extra density is discretionary. I think the town board has to be much more careful about that. I've been careful, as I said, at MBIA, in protecting the water, which I think is absolutely crucial. When we do these studies, I think we have to be careful. It's too easy to just follow what these studies say. And I'm not suggesting we do that routinely, but I think it happens too much. I love complexity. I feel very comfortable in it. I want to make things simple, but I am incredibly comfortable in complexity, like some of us here, because I've experienced it most of my life. I wrote very complicated income tax regulations when I was the treasurer.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can you repeat the question, Tom?
Sure. Development in your town is a key concern for most residents. Please share your views about the proliferation of large-scale developments and their impact on neighborhood character and town infrastructure, including traffic, fire, and police.
So first, I just want to say that whenever a development question comes to the town board, these are questions that aren't like a yes or no, right? There's major things that we need to mitigate in terms of the downsides for the town. And there's some things that are a huge possibility for us to get that are value for our residents. And that's the stuff we have to weigh. So on the things that are the downsides, one is like around schools and having burden around the schools. And that's something that we need to understand, like how many children will be coming through, what's the impact, how does the school superintendent feel about that impact? Another one is around traffic. So that's where we get into the traffic studies, understanding how to actually evaluate the analyses that are going on through there. Another one is around water and sewer. We have a really excellent head of water and sewer in our town who does an evaluation of how that's going to have an impact. And then the third one is around environment. So I think these are all things that are really key for us to look at. But I want to quickly point out in the 20 seconds, like some of the positives that are really key to look at as well. I mean, one is the investment we can get through development into parks and other resources for everyone. The second is the cost is just crazy high to live here. And I think we need to be providing more supply into the system, but to do it very thoughtfully. And last is just vitality of the town through where the residents coming.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Rubisi, we start with you next. Affordable housing and its placement is an important topic in town. How do you support the clustering of affordable housing, or don't you? Please explain.
Well, I don't think there's a yes or no answer. You know, for example, there's this Summit Club golf course that's been redeveloped, and it's going to have 72, I think it's 72 high-end units. If you were to put fair and affordable housing in there, that would be 7 units. Now to put 7 units on a golf course where effectively, you know, these people are going to be fish out of water, and they're not going to. It's just not going to work. So in that particular case, does it make sense to allow them to move to a location? I think it does. I think, you know, really I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here. I think it depends on the development, and I think it depends upon where that development is and the nature of that development. In some cases, it may make sense to move these fair and affordable into another location. In other cases, maybe not.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barrett.
So affordable housing is very important. requirement of law. I believe in it. I can tell you, I grew up in relatively modest circumstances. I would have loved to live on Summit when it gets built as a use clause to be able to avoid it. So fine if you're a little bit out of town, but I love it. Don't fool yourself. First of all, there are a lot of great developers. I have very close friends from law school, from junior high school, and others who inform my views in terms of understanding how these things work. Don't fool yourselves. Developers will make all sorts of arguments about moving affordable housing off-site so that they can save money. And fine, it's capitalism, but that's the deal going in. You have one developer in particular who agreed to a certain percentage and kept on coming back, and the rest of the town board gave it to him. I believe that it is really important to have that diversity, not just in the town, but in communities and in housing areas. So yes, you will look at it, but the arguments we're hearing a lot of times are being made are, I want to make more money. I know this was a deal, but I want to make more money. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Mr. Hussein.
Okay, so I respectfully disagree with Larry's point. Like, I actually, in all of the evidence I've seen, I'm still very open to debate. I think that clustered affordable housing is not a good idea. In all of the situations that have so far been brought forward to the town board. And the reason is something that I think is a kind of human thing that you can see. So let's imagine that you have a group of affordable housing in a cluster in the town. What happens is when you have families that then raise their children there, there's stigmatisms that then get acquainted with those families. And then there's actually kind of divides that form within the community. There's kind of mini communities that form. And those have bigger consequences that last for generations. And this is why at a national level, there's been a push to try to really limit that kind of clustering activity to happen. And I think when we do that, we see other things that actually are really hurtful to developers. It actually hurts their economic benefits. And that's something we need to be really cognizant of. So perhaps there are some times when an exception is appropriate, but I do think it's really important for us to keep on the path of ensuring that affordable housing stays disparate amongst all the new development. That's really key.
You'd like, well, we have to wait for the candidate next to you and then you can rebut, all right? So, Mr. Orlon.
Yeah, so I think it's a very interesting question, right? Because we do have to have a percentage of affordable housing in the new developments as per the state rules. From my personal experience, like I consider, is it really affordable? Do we really have affordable housing here at Armonk? People can have an affordable house, but they still have to go to the Chico, they still have to go to the deli. The transportation of this town is extremely expensive. The reason I say this is because I grew up poor, grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment with my brother, my sister, my other sister, my father, and my mom. And for me, I think about it, when I had been comfortable living in a complex with a bunch of wealthy people, and am I going to fit in? Or am I going to fit in better with friends and family that are economically alike or educationally alike? So it's an interesting question. I don't know the right answer, but to me, I don't think that, trying to think that people fit in better in one environment than the other is a decision that we should make. If I, from personal experience, I can tell you that I would rather be with friends that are alike. Now, it's not an affordable town to begin with, so there is no affordability in this town.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Ruisi, your rebuttal for 30 seconds.
I would just like to clarify something that Celine said. I think you said I was frustrated. I did not say that. What I did say was there were situations when I thought, the developer should be allowed to move according to the limitation. I did not say that I was in favor of clustering.
All right, thank you very much.
Can I do
Hey.
a little?
Yes.
Good. So I don't know if most people know this. The law clearly provides, and I read this out once for development, that it should be on site unless it's not practical to move it to Cattertown. One developer tried to argue not practical meant that it wasn't economically practical. That to me seems silly. I think that is much better. I'm in Salim's camp on this. I thought it through quite a bit. and not just take on to what he said, but it's really important, I think, to have more diverse experience. The other part of the law said there is a strong preference given to keeping the units on site, and it's important to comply with what the laws are. We were challenged.
Okay, thank you very much.
Trying to make it exact.
Thank you.
Short on the other part.
Okay, Mr. Orlando.
I know that we keep talking about the developer being the evil person here, the developers making money. But you do have to understand that developers are taking risks on building all these houses. And sometimes, when things don't work out, they get stuck with the bill. I know that Mr. Barron said that the development down by David Chance was something that he wouldn't have done. But the owner of the development can't even sell a unit right now. So he's under financial stress. And all of us are sitting here thinking that maybe he should have done something differently, or Mr. Barrow would have voted something differently, but they take the risk.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Orlando. All right, next question, we start with Mr. Barra. Small businesses and restaurants have always been an important part of the Armonk hamlet. What is your view on the future character of areas, including the downtown? And how will you help attract and retain businesses that support your vision?
I like a vibrant community. I enjoy having restaurants, bars that are fun. I like having people coming to this town. We have to balance it out. We can't have so much traffic. We can't have so much in terms of parking problems. Unfortunately, I don't think we have to attract a lot in terms of restaurants, but I think we want more diversity in shops. We should, the types of stores that we have there. And we really do want to make it fun for people to be here and to want to be here. So what's the vision? I think Armonk's doing okay. Unfortunately, it's tougher economic times for office buildings and all that. But we really have to concentrate, I think, is in places like North White Plains. That's been a big struggle. North Broadway, because it's a corridor, presents inherent problems, but there have been thoughts into how to make it more attractive. There's been a classic car place that's been getting fixed any day now for many days. So I think it's really important. And I'll just add, it fits in with that. I understand developers take economic risk, but that's the equation. They are getting, problem is they're often overpaying because they're granted extra density. So unfortunately, even though I want developers, I want everyone to succeed. The problem ends up being that sometimes they make poor decisions or don't do the product right. And I'm not sure that the town should subsidize it. The real standard is something in the best interest of the town.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hussein.
Yeah, can you repeat the question?
Sure. Small businesses and restaurants have always been an important part of the Armonk hamlet. What is your view on the future character of areas, including the downtown, and how will you help attract and retain businesses that support your industry?
Okay, so I think it really comes down to very basic human things. I think the first thing is just about listening. I mean, I found that to be the most key part of this is listening to what the needs are from the business owners that exist and from those that are talking to us about setting up new businesses in the town. I think a good example of this was actually work that we did during COVID times, because as we were coming out of that, the businesses were asking for things. They were asking for having open spaces outside, be able to see people there, to have heaters there. And I think we did a good job. I'm proud of that work and the extensions that we provided as that needed to be extended more and more. These are things we just need to keep our ears open for, and we need to always keep in mind our residents. And then the second thing I want to be stressing is the value of connecting the residents to the capabilities that our town is bringing. Like, we have awesome restaurants here. We have great facilities for various demographics of people. And I think we can amplify that better and better. One of the surveys we did showed that like some of the best websites we've seen for towns outside of North Castle has been where they've highlighted things that people can enjoy regardless of whether it's town offered or not. So we can be doing more to amplify the capabilities and bringing more people to them.
Thank you. Mr. Orlando.
Yeah, no, for me, it's an interesting question, right? Because I believe that we have a tremendous culture of businesses here in town in North White Plains, and also Banksville. I don't think I find myself eating at any other restaurant in this side of town, because we have so many good ones, right? I think that the sense of traffic, I don't see any traffic issues, in town that we have to address. I just feel like if we could park a little bit further, it's better for you. In regards to creating a better culture, I guess maybe, like you said, talking to the business owners a little bit more about what the town can do for them and what the challenges are that they may encounter when they come here. I know that the rent is a major cost, that the town has to, that the business owners have to absorb. But there's not much we can do with that. But it's just finding out what we can do as a town to help the business owners progress a little bit more instead.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ruizzi.
So, learned a long time ago when I was building theaters in New York City and in various places in the country. Theaters are what you call an anchor, right? When you have an anchor, other businesses develop around it. So one of the things that has happened in Armonk, downtown Armonk, over the last several years is Armonk Square has really become an anchor. And what we've seen as a result of that, we've seen more restaurants pop up, we've seen retail pop up, and that's all a good thing. So I think from that perspective, downtown Armonk is in a good place. You know, one of the challenges that we have in bringing new businesses in is unfortunately the parking. And one of the things we're looking at right now is a restaurant across the street from Armonk Square. And basically that restaurant would be a great ad. Doesn't have enough parking. Can we solve the problem with valet parking? So I think we have to work with small business, shop owners and restaurateurs to make it work with these towns. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hussein, we begin with you. How would you enhance programs for seniors in your town?
Wow, that was great. I feel like this is all part to me because, so programming, I would actually address this through the different departments that we have. So we already, by the way, have a good variety of programming that's offered through the recreation department and the libraries to our seniors. And we've been and for those of you that haven't attended any of these, like we have like chair yoga, we have like different games you could do, like bingo. We actually set up a chess club the other time, which is actually all ages. And then there's like a book club. So I think there's these things. There's a Italian language class that had gotten a lot of attendance and folks attending that. So there were things that the town has offered in the past. The way I'd love to approach it going forward is I want to kind of keep bringing in new types of classes, right? And try different things. Interesting, another fun fact, like out of COVID, when we started coming back to face, we actually got a strong response from senior citizens saying, we'd like to keep Zoom. So I think it's also very important to have hybrid and multi-option attendance. And I think we need to up-level the AV across all of our common spaces. You might notice there's a lot of echoing here audio-wise. We don't have good setups for video. So that's something that is very important to me, and hopefully we'll see. I've been taking action throughout this as well.
Thank you very much. Mr. Orlana.
How would you say the question one more time?
How would you enhance programs for seniors in your town?
Yeah, that's for me, it would be, I guess, asking questions and listening. It would be a form of a survey, just asking our seniors exactly what it is that they would want from the town for us to put together for them. I don't know much about what seniors would want, right, but I would love to know exactly where I can help and how the town can help enhance their life in this town. If we said maybe programs in technology, also encourage our local gyms to maybe establish some classes at local equinox that we can offer for seniors. We continue to enhance everything that we're currently doing to make it even better than what it was yesterday.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ruizzi.
Yeah, as Salim has pointed out, the library and the rec department already have quite a number of programs that I think many of the seniors enjoy. I think it might be worthwhile to try to solicit seniors to see how else we can help. What are the programs they might like from a recreational point of view, the ways that we can perhaps help them in their day-to-day lives. And we get volunteers to drive to places if they need that. I guess I'm already there. I guess I'm senior, but, that's scary. I'm still healthy, I'm still vibrant. But for those that need help, I think we need to try to reach out and find ways to help them in any way we can.
Thank you. Mr. Barrow.
Thank you. So I think that's part of the bigger question. How do we keep our seniors in town? One possibility is getting to run for the town board. They might find that stimulating. You got it. And it's really important to do this. We have all sorts of programs. But for instance, I thought, people think car leasing is really complicated. Some ways it is, but there's a few steps to analyzing it. I thought of offering to give less to people. I haven't had time at the seniors, just to focus on, well, what do you do with car leasing? Why is it costing so much? Why has it gone up so much? I think we can get involved. We can volunteer our time. I understand that seniors in North White Plains feel like too many of the programs are up here and not enough are down there. And I think we should take a look at that. It is absolutely crucial to really figure out from seniors themselves. We did a great survey from the residents to find out what was important to them in rec facilities. And they told us, and that was really drove us quite a bit. I think we do the same with seniors. Not to class them as one homogeneous group, but they have all sorts of different interests. Let's go ahead and do movies and shows. Let's expand on it. Let's make special programs that people want. And we got to make it affordable. Not everybody can afford a lot. Transportation is important because not everybody gets around. Hopefully in a few years with self-driving cars, someone will dive in on that. We'll get to help these little. So on top of that.
Can I do a rebuttal? Can I use a rebuttal slide?
Yes, you may. Yes.
Okay, great. I just wanted to also maybe share for just your knowledge about some of the work we've done, in like kind of understanding what seniors want. So we had a tech task force that had come together the last year. And in that we ran these design thinking sessions. And one of those included a group of senior citizens, and that brought us all of this wealth of knowledge on what they are looking for. And also we have seniors in a couple of the advisory boards, and we have a couple of folks sitting here that have given very strong feedback that the programming isn't suited to what seniors want. So I just wanted to share that we need to keep working to make that.
Thank you very much. Okay, yes. We don't usually rebuttal, but go ahead, we have time, you can add.
Well, that was just a.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to commend Salim. He's been absolutely great. I think he'll remember, I was trying for years. Somebody in town had raised serious concerns over cybersecurity. I was looking for people to get traction with the members of the town board. Salim got on, I had the conversation with him. And what he did was he started a tech task force. Our residents, including our seniors, are the most valuable assets. They contribute to the town, to the fabric of the community, they volunteer a lot. He ran with the tech task force and did incredible things, way beyond cybersecurity, got great volunteers, and there's going to be a work session on Wednesday that you might want to watch to see if we're going to make this into a permanent task force, which I'm confident we will.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, next question, Mr. Orlando, we start with you. What are your thoughts on the future of parks and recreation in your town? And do you support the addition of a turf field that many residents seem to want? Please explain why or why.
Yeah, I have 3 daughters. They all played soccer, they're all engaged with sports. I grew up playing soccer myself. I ended my career in sports playing football at Fox Lane High School. I believe that we have beautiful parks, beautiful areas of recreation compared to the parks that I grew up in. Does it mean that things are great? No, things can get better. I believe that adding some turf fields for multi-use would be beneficial for the town. Number one, it will probably reduce the amount of maintenance that we put into these fields on a yearly basis. Number two, we could attract other towns to utilize our fields. And it would be a benefit not only for the IBM area, but also North White Plains and Banksville. I think that we can all benefit from improving that. But we also have issues with our pools right now. We decided to buy the pool back from the private owner, and we have to do some improvements to that as well too. Again, we are taxpayers, and the idea of paying taxes is that the town will bundle that together and make improvements to the town to give it back to us. And so I'm for turf fields. I'm for the improvements of recreation and parks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ruizzi.
So back in the day, I did coach Little League and youth basketball. Back then, we didn't have the IBM fields. So once again, I'm a senior, I can date myself. So we used to take my son home and put him in the bath because he had to clean off the goose. We've come a long way, and the IBM fields are really great, yeah. I think we do have to investigate the possibility of turfing those fields for several reasons. Getting more use out of the fields, not being put in a position where we have to rest fields. We have other fields that have flood issues. So we have to investigate it, but I think before we make any final decision, we need to have all the facts. Now, the fields up here aren't the only fields that need to be addressed, right? We're down in North White Plains recently, and those fields have some issues too and need to be resurfaced in certain ways. Not turf, but dirt and sod. From the pool, I was the one who basically created the feasibility study and the operating plan, and as a result of that, we didn't buy the pool back then, we leased it, took the debt down, and that plan basically enabled the town to purchase the pool now. Now that we have the pool, we do need to address it. We do need to resurface the deck, we need to work on the inside of the pool, and we need to work on the pool. That all needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Barrett.
So I played tennis, I played baseball when I was a kid. I am not big into sports or organized sport, but arguably I'm the most qualified to comment on them because I have Yogi Berra's autograph that says my long lost cousin. So I think that the fields are crucial. I've looked at them very carefully. I commend Matt Millam for running with that issue. I've looked at the numbers. I said that before, 2.7 million, we should save $1.2 million over 20 years, and the lives of it should be 20 years or more. How we pay for it, we have to see. We can't bond it for 30 or 40 years because the life won't be so long, as someone has suggested. But it is absolutely crucial. I see it as a mental health issue. Because not just a recreational facility, our kids suffered terribly with COVID. Adults suffered terribly with COVID. They want to be out and about. We can do the field. We'll make sure it's prudent to do it. We'll check numbers more, but I am, after looking at it carefully, convinced we should have it. And doing it here is a starting point. It doesn't mean we don't do it somewhere else. We're one town. We address the needs of the different parts of town as we need to address them. And hopefully we plan ahead more for what we're doing. So for instance, we don't have the building at Lombardi Park deteriorate. We got to think ahead, plan carefully. Fortunately, we are a relatively wealthy community. I don't want to squander money. I want to keep taxes down, but we can afford to do the things that are important to make this a great town and keep it a great town.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Mr. Hussein.
Yes, and I'm saying this also very specifically, so I would ask you to hold me accountable to these things if I'm on the town board. So I'm gonna say a few things people haven't said so far. First is, I think it's really important for us to open up the gym that's in North White Plains for free play. People ask for that all the time. It's a great space. Right now there's basketball courts, we have pickleball lines, and it's the only indoor pickleball space we have. So I think it could be a great place for the community to be enjoying that space. The second is, we've done a lot of renovations. I think Matt Trainer for all the playground renovations we've done. We need to take further steps around accessibility for disabled. And those are things that involve like parking lines. It involves making sure that all of the guidelines are up to par so that all of the different kids in the town can actually go and utilize these services. A third is on the pool. I strongly feel we need to put significant investment, not only to revitalize the pool, but also to go one more level up and actually provide like play areas. Like right now, there's like a mushroom that spurts water, which is awesome. But then there can be more things like that, just make it a wonderful space for kids to enjoy. Walking, biking, I said this before, this is a major effort that needs some cross-town analysis. And I'd love to spend a couple of years going through that and understanding what's needed. And then for fields, to answer the question, I do think we need to keep going forward and assess what's needed, given the huge demand for fields to be renovated.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're at our final question. Would you like to rebut?
I would vote for Jose. You
Okay.
cannot invoke guilty burial. Born on the same day. This thing is not-
Okay, final question for the evening.
I would suggest that not pass.
Okay, Mr. Ruisi, what are your 3 top priorities if elected? What, if anything, would you like to see the town board discuss or focus on, of which they are not presently doing?
Okay, so, one of the things that we've discussed over the years, but we've never put into place, and I think it's important to put into place, is a multi-year plan. Every year the town gets together and they prepare a budget. And that budget looks out 1 year, and sometimes they're pretty accurate on the revenue, sometimes they underestimate the revenues. And obviously that has an impact on balance, but I think we need a long-term plan that addresses what we think the future revenues and expenses are going to be in the town based upon new development, based upon an increase in personnel costs, which by the way are 80% of our costs. And then take a hard look at the capital expenditures that we need and spread them out over time. Figure out a way to best address those. We can address them through revenues, we can address them through taxes, and to some extent, we can address them through the fund balance, which has grown over the last several years from, I think, $15 to $20 million. So I think that's the top priority that I would have. Second priority would be to deal with near-term capital expenditures, like some of the infrastructure, some of the deferred maintenance to be done.
Thank you. Mr. Barrett.
I agree that we should do multi-year planning. It's crucial. I also think as part of that, what we should be doing is something we haven't been doing, which is we have assumptions, we have studies, all great. You can't take them totally at face value, but what we can do is get smarter about it. What we do is after something is developed, let's see if the assumptions were accurate. Let's refine our thinking. Let's insist on looking at these things intelligently. I would also improve the budgeting process. I've asked this year, and I have in other years, for the big picture. What we do is we get the department budgets. People do an absolutely great job putting those together. But for me, and I'm able to figure it out because of my background, but I've asked and haven't been able to receive the turn down to get an overview. How do all the revenues, how do all the expenses add up? And let's look at the big picture before we go into individual departments, so we see where we're heading. That part of all this also, building department has issues with a lot of people. People work really hard there. I don't know if people know this, but it's hard to get good building inspectors. And it's a tough market for that. But I routinely hear, and I think a lot of other people hear, complaints about the process. And I'm not placing any blame on it. Typically, if there's any blame to be had, I'll place it on the town board. Responsibility ends with us. But I think we need to address that and really help improve the situation. People refer to as customer service. I think a bit more, I think that really understates the importance. Because, sentence, if that's okay. Because I think of it as resident service. These aren't just our customers. People in town are stockholders, our residents, etc.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett.
I'm short on one question.
I know, well. Mr. Hussein.
Yeah. Okay, so 3 priorities. The first I would say is around transparency in government. The things that people need to do to abide by the rules, it's very complicated. It's like hard to understand, and that's because the code is complicated. That's just how things work. But from a town, I think we have a responsibility to make that really clear, so the explainability is there. And when people ask a question, it's easy for them to understand the answer in whatever form that they see, they're comfortable reading or hearing. So I think that's one thing that it evolves. There's a full set of actions around that are going to be really important for us to invest in. The second is around guardrails for development. We need to be really clear when development is happening, that it's controlled and there's appropriate guardrails to mitigate for the risks that we talked about earlier. And then the third is like fiscally responsible investments. So we have major investment opportunities, but we need to make them very carefully, right? And we need to set our town up for long-term success, even when things are happening that we may not have expected otherwise. So I think that's going to be really important for us. And then one thing we need to do that we haven't been doing before is really around technology and data security. This is a rising issue that many towns are unfortunately dealing with poor consequences of. And we have some work ahead of us to get that under control. I'd love for that to happen.
Thank you very much. Mr. Orlon.
Repeat the question one more time.
Sure. What are your 3 top priorities if elected? What, if anything, would you like to see the downtown board discuss or focus on, of which they are not presently doing?
Yeah, I think one of my top priorities is finances, keeping a tight handle in our finances. I think that our current town supervisor has done a phenomenal job of that. If we don't have a tight handle on our finances, we can't do any of the things that we want to do. I think that infrastructure is another issue. Where right now we're discussing fields and we're discussing parks, but there's a ton of infrastructure that needs to be addressed in the town. That would be with current building, town-owned buildings and water infrastructure in North White Plains. And keeping taxes flat. Those are my 3 top priorities.
Okay, thank you very much. It's now time for closing statements. As I said earlier, closing statements will be given in the reverse order as the opening statements. Candidates, you have 1.5 minutes for your closing statement. We will begin with Mr. Ruiz.
Right now, the town's in a good place. Taxes are flat, we have a strong fund balance. Certainly, credit has to be given to Mike Shalero, our outgoing supervisor, and some of the people participating in this forum. However, our environment may become more difficult in the future. The rapid increase in inflation, high interest rates is sure to have an impact on the town. You know, we were able to finance the resurfacing, repaving of the road at 1.3%. Not even remotely possible today. So we may be indeed at some point looking at a reduction in our revenues if development begins to slow. Our personnel costs are going to continue to increase, perhaps at a rate that's more accelerated than they have been in the past. So now's the time to put fiscal responsibility. Don't get me wrong, there are things that need to be addressed and we will address them. However, we need to be thoughtful as we spend the taxpayers' money. We need to do it in a way that continues to deliver the high level of services and the amenities that the residents have come to expect. Using my financial expertise and executive and operating experience I've gained over the years, I'll do everything in my power with the board to make sure that this county stays in a strong financial position and an attractive place to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Orlon.
I am not a politician. I know that sometimes we get into the politics aspect of it. I am a husband, a father, a neighbor, who also happens to be a taxpayer that wants to see the best for the town. I want to volunteer my time to help North Castle move in the right direction. I believe that I have the business experience and the logical thinking to help this town move forward. My colleague Larry said, I believe that we are going to encounter some difficult times that will come in the next few years. We start to see it in the news. you start to see that people are encouraging people to tie in their finances. And this is something that we have to do as well. I want to bring that expertise to the town. I want to help this town be better. Love it, love everything about it. I want my kids to come back and live here one day. And if you give me that opportunity, I think that you're gonna be proud of the work we're gonna do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hussein.
So I think I'd like to just summarize for you what I would hope you see in me and what I've been doing for the town the last few years. I'm very much someone who's a bridge builder. I like to work in collaboration with others. I like to listen for new ideas. I don't like protecting stuff that I've done before. I like kind of exposing things and understanding what we now learn from what we're doing in the future. And in terms of what worked and what didn't work. I'm an experimenter. I like trying new things. I want to be bold. I think we as a town have the kind of skills and resources that allow us to do things that really no other town has the ability to do. And I'd like to do that for our residents. And I'm very like resident oriented. Like I like to focus on who it's affecting at the end of the day and then draw it back to what actions we can take. And I feel like the last 4 years that I've had this role, I've really learned how the mechanisms work. It's complicated how all of these things fit together. And it's really empowering for me to be able to enact them for you and to make some changes happen. So I just ask you to please give me that chance to do that for the next few years. And I really cherish that opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barrow.
So thank you again to League of Women Voters, to all the candidates for participating. It's really important for the audience to see it, and mostly for the audience for being interested. Please be sure you vote. Serving on a town board, when I push everything Salim's saying, one of the most gratifying things I've ever done. And I've done some really great things, some really gratifying things. Let's keep our town moving forward. Let's re-examine things we've done in the past. Let's go ahead and improve things and do what we need to do. Let's make the tough decisions. Now, we have different views in some ways, but that's good. I don't feel threatened by that. That's how we learn from each other. Salim and I have pretty strong disagreements sometimes, and we both learn from it. Mel, for instance, I understand you felt comfortable being with people where you were growing up, and that a lot of people that way, that's totally fine. My view is a little bit different. My parents were from Argentina. They came up here. I was born here. My sister and I, my brother was older, and he never felt out of place so much. But I threw myself into different environments, and that's why I was able to go to law school, which is a great accomplishment. I think it's important we make sure we have strong ethics rules. The ethics board has been doing a great job on that. We've got to point out that we need to make investments. We have the money to have them be cost effective. On Mariani, there were 3 steps that were involved. For rezoning, 3.5 steps. Amendment of the comprehensive plan, 2 special use permits. I'm the only one of anyone who's on the board through that whole time who voted against every single one of them. And we would have been better off without it. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the candidates and the audience. Thank you that the forum was reported and will be available online in the coming days and on vote411.org.
Thanks, audience, and thank you, Kathy, for your excellent efforts in keeping this forum running smoothly. We're ending on time, and good luck.